Hey, all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly value, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey, everybody, how we doing today? Hopefully we doing okay. Thank you so much, Steve, for the contribution. I appreciate you. That reminded me. And thank you so much, Angie B, for becoming a member. I appreciate all of your support. So we're going to get into something here. We're going to get into something here because I think it bears explaining what being the tool of so-called white supremacy is. What is that? Okay. This is why I named it that. She gets her wake-up call. And we know what a wake-up call is. We know that that means that a Black person that's been towing the line, the talking points, the viewpoint of white supremacy eventually get notified by those same people that they were standing with arm in arm, thinking that they were on the same team intellectually, thinking they were on the same team politically, thinking they was on the same team ideologically, maybe even culturally. Wake up. They get woke up. You're not one of us. You're not us. You're not us. And we don't give you the same grace we would give one of our own. You're not one of our own. And I think that it bears to explain that. Because for as much as I can agree with some of the things that Candace has said about feminism, even some of the criticisms that she has had for Black culture, some of the things that she stands for, I can agree. But for all of that, that doesn't stop the facts. From her personal life to her professional life, she chose a side. And she can say she didn't, but she did. And when they are done with you, when you no longer serve them, when what you think, what you say diverges from what they think you should say and what they believe you should think, then you're done. If you identify too much with your own, in this case, Black people, if she start identifying a little bit too much empathy or something, and or saying anything that's against their sensibilities. In this particular case, Candace went against their sensibilities. She had a video that's still up on her channel where she addressed the Palestine situation. And she didn't fall too hard on one side or the other. She thought that she was playing it safe by going the we should focus on America route. Unfortunately for her, that wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough. Not only did they oust her from the Daily Wire network, now they talking about it. Ben Shapiro called himself don't want to talk about it. He was on Piers Morgan, and even though I didn't watch the entire interview or whatnot, when asked about the Candace Owens situation, he was like, oh, I'm not gonna comment. Interesting. You've got a lot of different comments on a lot of different stuff, but now you don't got nothing to say about Candace Owens getting ousted from the Daily Wire, and we know that y'all had beef, so now all of a sudden you wash your hands of it. You're not going to talk about it. You're not even going to acknowledge her. That's how they do. But I don't feel sorry for Candace. I don't. This is what we've been talking about. Now she's tasting it. I'm just doing a little recap. She do wear her hair. I think she looked like she silk press it. But that's her hair. She ain't got no weave on. I'm responding to this. Just randomly, I saw the comment. But this is key. This is really key. This is really key. The reason why they break they black tools is because you can only go so far. There's no path to whiteness for you. Don't care who you sleep with, Candace. Don't care who you marry. Don't care who you marry. Your white children are not a path to whiteness for you. It won't even be a path to whiteness for them if they don't look white enough. They're going to have to marry white people. That's the only way, so that they progeny will be white. And it's more than likely to happen because their father is white. Exactly. Will never be Mrs. Cartwright. You'll never be Mrs. Cartwright. That's going to be Friday's show. Thank you for the title name block. Because that's what it boiled down to. You'll never be Mrs. Cartwright. But we're going to get to that when we talk about it on Friday, because I'm parsing it out. Because today I want to talk about the anatomy of bedwenching and what it means to actually be a tool of white supremacy. And they break you. They get rid of you. They cancel you. They do all this other stuff with you. When they're done, she reached the ceiling of what she could do for them. And then they just boot you. They just boot you off the train. Yep, bye, go, bye. I'm going to read an article, and then I'm going to show y'all something. Because I want y'all to understand. I'm going to show you something later, but right now, I'm gonna read you an article. This is how they talking about this woman. These are folks she was just turning up with these people a week ago. 2 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden, she problematic. And she, quote unquote, according to them, she been problematic. Daily Wire CEO blasts Candace Owens over Christ is King refrain. You are a blasphemer and an anti-Semite and a piece of crap. This is how they talking about this woman that was just sitting in a circle with them. She was just sitting in a circle with them having a conversation where all of them supposed to be more or less on the same page ideologically. Jeremy Boring, the CEO of the Daily Wire, who announced Candace Owens' departure from the outlet last Friday, blasted his former employee for using the phrase Christ is King to justify her descent into so-called overt anti-Semitism over the last few months, which she has not done. She didn't do that. The refrain first gained attention last fall when Owens used it amidst a row with her then colleague Ben Shapiro. She has since fallen back on it a number of times in order to justify her advancement of various anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. It has been useful to her in that many have defended her by wondering how the phrase, an uncontroversial assertion in Christianity, can be anti-Semitic. I'm asking this sincerely. I'm a student of life. I'm not that smart. There are many things I do not know. This is a sincere question without snark or sarcasm or trolling. How is saying Christ is King anti-Semitic? When did this become true? Is it true? Wondered Jason Whitlock, interestingly enough. Boring took a shot at answering Whitlock's query because before we continue on, she could say that. If that's in fact how she feels. We're going to get to her husband in a minute. Boring took a shot at answering Whitlock's query. How is saying Christ is King anti-Semitic? The same way anything becomes anti-Semitic when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism. It's like asking how does a shovel become a murder weapon when it is used to murder someone? This isn't hard. A shovel is not innately a murder weapon. Saying Christ is King is not innately anti-Semitic. It's all about how a thing is used. You know how they do all of these mental gymnastics to try to prove a point. He continued, saying eat some cornbread is not racist if I say it to my 3-year-old when she's refusing her dinner. If I start saying it as a response to posts by Black commentators I don't like, it has taken on a meaning beyond what is innate. In other words, it is connotatively racist, not denotatively racist. So too, Christ is King may be anti-Semitic in connotation while not in denotation when it is being used to express anti-Semitism. And when did this become so? It has always been so. Is it so? Yes, innately. You see how they do? See how they talk? Additionally, saying Christ is King for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your disdain for small hats, is a grave sin. It plainly violates the third commandment, thou shalt not carry forth the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Surely if grape and deleting someone like Hamas did, and all the while I shout at them, Christ is King or God is great, we would agree that I have committed 3 crimes, not 2. Grapes, deletions, but also the crime of implicating God in the first 2. So one must be cautious how one uses the name. God will not be mocked. Invoking him in vain, self-promotion, or to troll small hats, or to attack your political rival is to carry forth his name in vain. Jesus Christ is King. Okay. Sure enough, King of heaven and earth, King of little hats and Gentiles alike. Yet a bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not smother. So don't use his name as a cudgel to bash those in whom the light of God yet flickers. If you do, you are a blasphemer and an anti-Semite and a piece of crap generally, and the fear of the Lord is clearly not in you. It will be, though. Now, That was interesting, wasn't it? That was interesting, wasn't it? That was a lot of word salad, was it not? All to get around to saying what he wanted to say, which was at the end of calling her a piece of crap. And yes, that I see they threaten you and then want to act like it was a benign. The fear of God is not in you, but it will be. Sound like a threat to me. So let me actually go to my notes because I get off track because it's too much to unpack. So what does it mean to be the tool of white supremacy? What are we saying? What are we saying when we say somebody has been when we call people a coon, when we say they cooning, when we say they stepping fetching, when we say that they're bed wenching, when we use these terms, and they have very slightly varying definitions, but generally speaking, when we use these terms, we mean a person that is allowing themselves to be utilized as tools. What does it mean to be a tool of white supremacy? The first thing is that they use you to speak their talking points, to promote their version of both past historical events and their viewpoint of current events through their lens and perspective. I'm going to repeat that. The first and most critical part is that they use you as a Black person to speak their talking points, to promote their version of both past historical events and their current view of recent events, but through their lens and perspective. Why would they utilize Black people for this purpose? To give their version more credibility in the eyes of the world and the eyes of other Black people, because they get to trot out a Black person that espouses their same ideals, so that they get to say, see, even Black people agree. There are even good right thinking Negroes. There are some good right thinking darkies that think like we do, that feel the way we do. See, we can't be all wrong if those among their group can see what we see. Surely our version of events has credence. See, all of that is to remove themselves from white supremacy, slavery, and its after effect, so that the condition of the people that they enslaved for hundreds of years in the past, that responsibility don't fall back on them. They don't want the responsibility. They don't want the responsibility because there's no more benefit in that. They can't get slave labor. They can't benefit like they were before. So we don't want to take the consequences either. If we can't benefit, then we're not going to shoulder as a group any of the consequences that came about from those hundreds of years. You might ask, well, what are white supremacists' talking points? What are the talking points, Crimson? What are you saying? Some of the talking points. White people are being discriminated against and marginalized in their own land. That's one. And I've heard Candace speak to this before, how there is reverse discrimination, how there are white people suffering in this country because they are now quickly becoming the minority ethnic group here. And it's disingenuous because who's letting in immigrants? Who's doing that? Is it mysteriously happening, or is the government doing it? And who the government run by? Black people or no? Right? So they'll look at it and say, look, the left, the Democrats, are just opening the floodgates for all of these non-white people, Mexicans and all these other people are just flooding into our country. And the white man can't do nothing. You know, we're villainized. We're villainized no matter what we do. Nobody likes us. We can't even breathe. Right? Because we're going to be demonized somehow. And people are going to bring up white supremacy as the big boogie monster. And us, we got to bear that burden. Y'all heard of the white man's burden. We got to bear that burden unjustly because we didn't enslave nobody. And we didn't create this system. What the part they don't say is that they benefit from it. The part they don't say is that they're still the major benefactors of the system that their forefathers created for them. Am I lying or not? Y'all ain't heard these y'all heard these talking points, right? Y'all heard these talking points, right? They are. See, I talked about that Monday. When we say white supremacy, I'm not talking about just the American white man. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about just, he's not the only one implicated in this. Have the little hats been given whiteness or not? The vast majority of them sit in seats of power in the government in all three, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch. See, we got to know what we're talking about here. I don't want us to be emotional about this. Some of the talking points. So white folks get discriminated against more now than anybody. Right? Supposedly. The next talking point that I know that you've heard, white supremacy does not exist. White supremacy does not exist. Or even if it does, it is so ineffectual or non-consequential that it shouldn't be brought up anymore. Nobody should bring that up, especially Black people. White supremacy doesn't exist. And even if it does, it's so ineffectual. It is so non-consequential. It is so small. It doesn't have any real implications in the real world for any vast amount of people. So why should you bring it up? That's just a way for you to demonize white people, and it's a way to have a crutch to say why you're not in the position you want to be in as a people. Which leads to this other talking point, which is intertwined, that blacks should never use white supremacy as a reason or an excuse for not getting ahead as a group. If a few blacks can apply themselves and pull themselves up by their bootstraps, then all of them can. And the few that can prove that white supremacy is not real. Forgetting to tell you that the exceptions prove the rule. See, it's the part they don't say. They don't want to tell you that the exceptions actually prove the rule. Because we never said that black people couldn't work. That's not the contention. We never said black people couldn't get rich. We never said black people couldn't invent something. We didn't say that. But we also not going to ignore that every time we made a substantial move in that direction, they specifically destroyed it. They don't like for us to talk about Black Wall Street. When black people made a concerted, significant effort in that direction of being self-sufficient, not relying on anything, we're not even going to bring up the segregation and the white supremacy that we're actively facing every day. Y'all comes through and will lynch us. That was you understand what I'm saying? We're not even going to talk about that. We just going to do what we do. And when we did what we did, regardless of their overt racism and institutionalized racism, when we bucked against it and actually succeeded, and that was not one time, it wasn't 2 times, it wasn't 3 times, it was dozens of times we did that. During Reconstruction, dozens of times we did that. Dozens of times. We did exactly what they said we should do now. Pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Don't think about the white man. You know, it is what it is. Slavery happened. We're not slaves anymore. And this is Reconstruction. This is right after slavery. These are people who was being still let out off the plantation. Do you understand what I'm saying? And every time we picked ourselves up by the bootstraps, we paid them no mind. We did what we were supposed to do. Did they or did they not come through to physically put an end to it, even if they could not put an end to it politically or through legislation or through any of the other institutions? When they couldn't put an end to it, okay, they cry about all this other stuff in Pearl Harbor, but they don't want to talk about the time that the American government dropped bombs on its own citizens with Black Wall Street. We want to talk about that? We want to talk about that? We're not talking about that? No? So they'll come out today and say, well, y'all should pick yourselves up. Nobody's stopping you. Nobody's, in your way to do this and to do that. And when we do that, Did they not kill off our leaders? Did they not kill us all? They didn't actively stop the movement. They didn't actively do that. They didn't assassinate. They didn't assassinate MLK. They didn't assassinate Malcolm X. They didn't assassinate the Black Panther Party and jailed them. The ones they didn't assassinate, they jailed. That didn't happen. We imagine that. That's in our imagination, right? You didn't assassinate all the leaders and then cripple us economically, cripple us politically. You didn't do that in the 60s. That didn't happen. Welfare system wasn't instated under Lyndon B. Johnson. No. You didn't tell Black women they can't have the men in the house. No, we didn't say that. That's not having an effect. Because they want to say that this stuff is happening in a vacuum. That the stuff happening, but there's no repercussion. There's no consequence behind it. There's no after effect behind it. So the Moynihan report was what? Did a whole thing on the Moynihan report. Got a whole playlist. Moynihan report was what? A lie? I'm going to go to a commercial break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show y'all something. But after these messages, we'll be right back. Because I need everybody, listen, this is a heavy topic. So I need everybody to go to ashkicking.com, brighten up your day and brighten up your skin, because I know that you are looking to keep your skin looking and feeling and smelling its absolute best. I am pretty much on like my third or fourth jar of body butter. This stuff is awesome. I use it every day. And my skin is very smooth. You don't have to keep reapplying it. It doesn't just, leave you ash kicking. It doesn't leave you ashy. You're not ashy. And if this is the first time that you're going to be ordering, I don't know what you're waiting on. And you need to take advantage of a 10% discount that you can receive on your first order using the promo code Crimson. So once again, click the link at the top of the chat, ashkicking.com, and pick up your order today. Don't know how many likes I need, but I owe y'all a bam, 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 bam. You gotta hit the like button, bam, bam. You gotta go ahead and hit the like button for me. Let me get to these super chats. Thank you, Sharon, for your $10. Thank you, Utan, for your contribution. Good evening, Sister Davis. Bella Reens asked a question about the differences between divestiture swirlers and bed wenches. I would like for you to answer her question so I can know. Not much of a difference. Negligible. I actually kind of use those words interchangeably. Divestiture swirlers, bed wenches. Although bed wenches is an older term that goes back into plantation and Black women utilizing sex with white men in order to curry power or to gain some benefit that would alleviate some of the stresses of servitude and slavery, but then they would wield that power against their own. So it wasn't just let me save myself any way that I can, but once they would receive some measure of power or some influence, they would negatively use it against other Black people. So we had instances where Black women were owning slaves, but not for the purpose of emancipating them, but for the purposes of having them. They were passed down to her from her slave master, and she didn't let them go. When you had instances of Black men owning slaves or buying slaves during that time, they were buying their family members and the purpose was to emancipate them, not to keep them as slaves. So they would go buy their wife, they would buy their children, they would go and buy their family members back if they could. And so on the books, they're registered as slave owners. But in reality, they were buying them so they could free them, so that they could be a family again if they could do that. Thank you, Blue Exodus. I wonder if she wanted to get fired because she's been going in on the Little Hats for a minute. Thank you, Esther, just because. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, Common Man. So Oprah was a tool that was gotten rid of. She was supposed to endorse John McCain over Obama Live, but at the last minute, she endorsed Obama. They got rid of her after that. She'll never do network again. Thank you, Sister Beshua. So there were hundreds of successful Black towns between Reconstruction and the Civil Rights era that were destroyed because of jealous folks for a lying white women. Thank you, Mogul. So they'll victimize us and then create a narrative that point us as the perpetrators. And thank you, Gerald, for your contribution. I appreciate all of you. So it's interesting to me that her husband has not made any appearance or statement. Your wife is getting battered, absolutely battered in the media, attacked by the very people that was supposed to have her back. And where's your statement? Where's Zaddy's protection? That you supposed to use that white shield you married. You married him. These his folk. Use him. He supposed to be your shield. Hey, y'all gotta lay up off my wife. Whatever you gotta do, I don't care if you gotta go up there in person. You're not gonna going on the media, a media tour, and call my wife a piece of crap and talk about her. You gonna stay professional. If you got a comment on it, fine, but you're not gonna denigrate her and you're not gonna degrade her, or you're gonna have to come see me. You got that? Even if you don't make a public statement, I'd have made one of them. I know where you work. I'm gonna come up to you. This one right here, you're gonna leave her alone. If somebody asks you to comment, you can do so, but you better do it respectfully. If I hear one more denigrating comment about she's a piece of crap and if I hear one more quote, you got one. And we're gonna have to have another conversation. You can take that how you want. You can take it and run with it, as far as I'm concerned. I have not had too many instances of looking at him, or I couldn't even pick him up out of a lineup because I've just not been interested. I don't think I'm kind of getting that too, but you know, when it's your wife, that lion's supposed to come out. I don't care if he a quiet lion. He's supposed to bite when he got a bite. You understand what I'm saying? If you a lion and somebody mess with that lioness, you got to bite. I don't care if you got to reach back and put your dentures in to bite. You better reach back, get your lion dentures, put them in, and go bite. You're going to have to bite somebody. Because she has had to defend marrying that man just because he's white. And she did so proudly. She did it again on the Breakfast Club. She defended it. That's what it is. See, in the house, he say, "Oh, baby, it'll be all right. We're gonna pivot. We're gonna get you somewhere. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about them. You got your brand, you got your, I'm gonna put my money behind it. I'm gonna put, what I'm saying, and then we gonna keep on going, keep on trucking. We're gonna do these interviews, we're gonna go here, we're gonna do this kind of content, we're gonna pivot, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and it'll be all right." See, he'll probably say that. Somebody put this on subscriber mode only for me. But what he won't say is they are wrong, and go say it not just to her, but to them. You wrong for what you have done to her. And I won't stand for you disrespecting her. You can have your little role if that's what you're going to have, but you're going to respect her because she has not called now one of y'all out of y'all name at all, regardless of what has happened behind the scenes or what kind of content, because Ben Shapiro came for her on Twitter when they was co-workers and got each other number, and he could have talked to her back when that Kanye stuff was going on. They show you who they are. He's supposed to bite somebody for her, and he ain't do it. Because she has bitten for him. But this what you get for being a bootleg lioness in a circus. People didn't like that I called her that. The characteristics is the characteristics. She's feminine. She don't wear all that makeup. She don't wear weave. She don't curse. She's married before she had children. She didn't have kids out of wedlock. She's not ratchet. She's not running around here doing none of that stuff. The characteristics are there. She's just in a circus. She just, for whatever reason, she want to be a lioness in a circus. I don't get it. Go over there and be a whole lioness. A black man could have used that energy and built with you. You want to go over there and jump through they hoops, and they whips you and you jumps and all that kind of stuff. All the way out of character. You go over there and be a bed wench for her. Because that's what she wanted to do. You ever seen a lioness be outcast from the pride because she was too wayward, wouldn't do what a lioness supposed to do, and they ousted her? Told her if she ever come back around, then they were gonna get her, and the lionesses would do it. The lionesses would oust her. You can't come back. You are detrimental. You detrimental to the pride. You don't hunt with us. You kind of do stuff funny. You move funny with the cubs. We're not dealing with you. You gotta go. Yeah, have y'all ever seen a lioness do that? Because they go over there and be their best version. They try to go over there and be their best version. How you gonna go to the circus and be the best version? And then be traitorous. Girl, you might as well bump Sexy Red. Might as well. The way I see it. So when I say that about her, I'm not saying she's good, a good this and a good that. I'm saying she's rocking all the characteristics that you would want to see in a woman. And then she's over there. That's what I mean by that. I want to show y'all something because I'm going back to the point of the different talking points that get said. Things like poverty, single motherhood, crimes, lack of education is 100% the fault of the Black community. Slavery and white supremacy has been over with too long to talk about or use it as a crutch because the after effects are null and void. I'm going to prove what they do. Y'all ready?
Are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
Because Black people tend to be in lower economic statuses.
So you think that poverty equals crime?
It's highly correlated. A lot of studies
this is where
on
we
that.
Disagree. What an insult to the working poor of this country.
So why do you think Black people commit more crime,
Well, first of all,
Kirk?
what percentage of Blacks have a father around when they're raised?
I'm not sure.
25%. 75% of Black youth are raised without a father in the home. 75%. It is the most predictable way to end up in prison, end up as a murderer or a criminal.
And why
it's
do
not
you
a
think that's
racism
a problem?
It's not a white supremacy problem. It's a fact that Black fathers impregnate women and they don't stay around with the women
And
that
why?
they have impregnated. Is that a bigger problem or not a bigger problem than whiteness, white privilege, or white supremacy? How
They
can
should
you
all
blame?
be addressed, and they're all related.
This is not about systemic racism. Like, stop impregnating your women and abandoning them.
Well, the way to incentivize not impregnating women and abandoning them is increasing access to healthcare, into housing.
So we have spent $30 trillion on the social welfare system since 1965. So the more money we've spent on Black America, the less fathers we have, because Black women divorced Black men and married the government. Black people are only 13% of the population.
Did you catch him? He's telling a half truth. The girl is actually correct. He's doing talking points. And I need y'all to understand that the talking points is slick because they are not 100% lies. They're not 100% lies. They're just partial truths. I'll say one part and not say the other part. I'll say one part, not the other part. So I'll throw some stats or something like that. I'll give you, and then I'll give you the reason that is so. Let's go point to point.
Yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
Because Black people tend to be in lower economic statuses.
So you think that poverty equals crime?
It's
Yes. Poverty is strongly correlated to upticks in all kinds of crime. This was what the Moynihan report told us. And this is what we saw on the ground in real time. When you stack people on top of each other, like we've been stacked for probably the last 80 years in ghettos and projects and hoods and all of this type of stuff, the crime rate went up. because when you do not have proper access to economic pathways in order to get ahead and not hand to mouth and all of this other type of stuff, then you've got something to do. I've got work to do. I've got things to lose. I can't be caught in these various different outlets because I'm unable to go and secure meaningful, gainful employment. So there's going to be crime. There's going to be robberies. There's going to be gang activity. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. The ills of a people come forward when you crowd them, and then you take money, and then you make and they become poor, so that even when they try to get ahead economically, okay, let's go get a job, okay, let's go get some education, okay, let's go. We're not going to say that Black people don't do this in mass. We do. We've always attempted to move past the obstacles and the barriers in order to better ourselves. We've always tried to do that. The part they don't talk about is, since we talking about little hats, they never talk about how when they were rounded up in Germany and in the ghettos, they was doing the exact same thing. When the Irish were here and in the ghettos before they were accepted as white, before the Italians was accepted as white, before these groups were granted the pathway to whiteness, they was doing the same thing. They glorify La Cosa Nostra. They glorify the big mob families. When we talk about the ghettos that the Jews were put in, it's like, oh, poor, of course they was on top of each other and committing crimes. Oh, wow. It was all the poor Irishmen. They was graping and deleting and gangs and crime and in and out of jail and not really get family structure ain't really all that hot. The Irish was doing that until they gave the Irish police. You can be the police. You get the path to whiteness. Here, we'll grant you whiteness so you can stop. And then that'll bolster our numbers as well. We don't really like you. See, they don't like. The racism is interracial as well. Spics and guineas and wops and those are the names they call each other. Don't like the Italians because the Italians is too dark. They almost close to being Negroes. Right? So for the longest, Irishmen and Italians were not considered white. They weren't white. They was treated a half a smidgen better than a Negro. A half a smidgen. They didn't like them either until it was beneficial to ingratiate them into whiteness. And then it was like, okay. We can still have our racist thing between us, but for the purposes of being on code and all this kind of stuff, you can be white. They cracked down on the mob families, but they gave them government. You can be all in the FBI and the CIA and put you in government. Put you in government. Put you in governmental seats, political seats. You become the Rudy Giuliani's and he's not Italian. You see what I'm saying? You become that. Just put you in the seat. Irishmen became police officers and things of that nature. They put the Italians in the political seat. Because they can be white. Negroes don't have that opportunity because it's too dark. We're too genetically dominant. We can't be ingratiated into whiteness or we'll wipe them out. Genetically, biologically, we will wipe them away. They can't do this. Lil Hats was given whiteness right away. Politically, we could put you in. We would put you in all forms of government: legislative, executive, and the judicial branches of the government. Would put you in high seats. Why do you think American government is so pro-Israel to the point where you can't say otherwise? Who's doing that? Who's in charge of that? Who would benefit most from having that stance as a country? Let's go some more.
Highly correlated. A lot of studies.
This is where
on
we
that.
disagree. What an insult to the working poor of this country.
So why do you think Black people?
Working poor. The working poor are in the same circumstances as the non-working poor. As Black people, we don't have class division in terms of where we live and what we do. All of our classes are actually together, more or less, unless you become super wealthy. You have to hit a certain amount of wealth to be able to leave the hood altogether and not be involved. But for Black people, the working poor and the non-working poor they live in the same apartment buildings, they're in the same neighborhood. It's the same. I've never been on welfare. All praise due to the Most High. I've never been on welfare. But that didn't mean that I was able to not be in the hood. I was in the hood. I grew up in the hood. When I got grown and started working, I was still in the hood. Why? Because my money didn't allow me to be nowhere else.
Commit more crime.
Well, first of all, what percentage of Blacks have a father around when they're raised?
I'm not sure.
25%. 75% of Black youth are raised without a father in the home. 75%. It is the most predictable way to end up in prison, end up as a murderer or a criminal. It's not a racism problem. It's not a white supremacy problem. It's a fact that Black fathers impregnate women and they don't stay around with the women that they have impregnated.
Lies. Lies. That's a flat out lie. That's a flat out lie. He's toting the narrative that Black men are simply irresponsible and that they create families that they willingly leave. What he's not talking about, and he's going to double talk it at the end. What he's not talking about is how the welfare system incentivized Black women to marry the government. He says it at the end. It's a whole double talk because you can't get away from it. Black men were then incentive. Black women were incentivized to boot Black men out of the house. That's not hyperbole. That is not being sensational. I grew up watching the caseworker visit the house and look for signs of my father that my mother would hide to ensure that they never reported that my father actually lived with us in that house. And the reason why she had to hide that is because they would cut her off of welfare if she didn't. Gen Xers are old enough. If your mama was on aid, then you should be old enough to remember the caseworker visits. See, they don't do that now, but they used to enforce that. It wasn't just on the books. It wasn't just hypothetical. It was not hypothetical. It was real. I watched it happen multiple times. They come in, little caseworker, and she had her papers, and she want to see the kids, and she want to see the house. She want to see you keeping it clean. She wants you to and she's looking in all of your closets. She's looking under the bed. She's looking in through your personal things, trying to make sure that none of those things belonged to a man. Because if they did, you would be questioned about that and potentially taken off of aid. They would schedule another visit, and the stuff that they saw that they thought might have belonged to a man, shoes, a coat, anything, it better be gone. Ain't nobody making that up. Ain't nobody making that up. That's real. That was an actual thing that we looked at and it was happening. Ain't nobody just making up, oh man, the government put the Black man out. He did. I thought I putty tat. I did thought putty tat. I did see it. I thought I putty tat. Ain't nobody crazy.
Is that a bigger problem or not a bigger problem than whiteness, white privilege, or white supremacy? How
They
can
should
you
all
blame?
be addressed, and they're all related.
This is not a.
She said they all should be addressed and they're all related. She's correct. They should all be addressed. They are all related. He doesn't want to acknowledge the relationship between the institution of white supremacy and how that played out to incentivize the breaking of the Black family into what we see now, the Black family being broken and the consequences of that. Because it is true that children that come from broken families and raised in single mother homes, they are at a severe disadvantage, and they are, more prone to go to prison and jail and be in and out of jail. This is why they call it the school to prison pipeline, and why it is so prevalent for Black boys and not white boys and all the other boys in the country. It's more prevalent for Black boys. They don't want to tell you that part. He don't want it to touch. Oh no, they messed up on their own. Black people are in the lost value system on their own. Us consistently performing biocultirons on their community, that's inconsequential. That's not having an effect. They're in the lost value system because they want to be. Not because we put them in position to be there. And that they're acting out all of the lost value system ills and sicknesses. We're inherently bad. Black men inherently lead their families. And you get feminist black women that espouse these same things because feminism is white supremacy. I keep telling y'all that. It was a white supremacist system that handed feminism down. So of course it is the same. And he is water-headed. I ain't listen. His head about big. That's a tall head. Ooh, his head tall, baby. Ooh, I wasn't even gonna say nothing, but he a Frankenstein boy. That head tall. Anyway.
About systemic racism, like stop impregnating your women and abandoning them?
Well, the way to incentivize not impregnating women and abandoning them is increasing access to healthcare, into housing.
So
now, mind you, she said increase healthcare and housing. She didn't say anything about welfare. Watch his answer to this.
We have spent $30 trillion on the social welfare system since 1965. So the more money we've spent on Black America, the less fathers we have, because
before I let him walk that point back, his answer to incentivize to helping Black people was, well, we gave them welfare. Did y'all peep that? Did y'all peep that? She said incentivize healthcare and things of that nature. And he said, well, we done already spent $30 trillion on the welfare system since 1963. That was LBJ. What was it called again? What did he call it? What did LBJ call it? It was called the Great. Y'all will figure it out for me. The Great Society. Thank you. It was the Great Society. That's what the welfare, the restructuring of welfare. This is LBJ, an avowed racist, an open racist. He was openly. This is why I don't understand why people get so caught up with Trump as a racist. Okay. When have they not been? But so the Great Society and all that kind of stuff, put that in motion. Incentivize the Black family to be broken. And we're in a broken state now because of it. And then he says it. Then he say it. He don't realize he defeated his entire argument.
Black women divorced Black men and married the government.
Black women divorced Black men and married the government. I thought it was because Black men just was impregnating Black women and left. Or is it because Black women married the government and chose the government over their family structure? No. Did we forget what we just said in the heat of all of our talking points? Frankenstein head. Did we forget what we said? Tall head, tall as your head is, all the information should be lined up, shouldn't it? I would have thought tall as your head was, you could pick the information back up from the top. Didn't you just say it? I figured tall as your head was, you can open up that little stitch round Frankenstein head and just pop the top and get the information out of it. You can't do that? You forgot what you said? Because you said that the crime and all the things that Black people go through is because there's no fathers in the home. And there's no fathers in the home because Black men decided that they weren't going to be fathers. Is that not what we said? And then had to come right back around and tell the truth snagger too and say that Black women chose the government after saying why they chose the government, which was the $30 trillion in welfare. Stop it. Let me get to these super chats. Thank you, N.O. the Ball said, for clarity, the Christian church is fundamentally opposed to the theory of marriage, claiming that the highest degree of spirituality is achievable only by preserving the virginal state. Thank you, Uton again. So do you think Black men should continue to save Black women when the collective doesn't want it and keeps the hyena class? Well, I never was on this. You got to save all the women. We have to do what we have to do, starting at an individual standpoint. If you a lion, go get you a lioness and start a family. Do that in the best way that serves the both of you and any future plans that you have. I've never asked nobody to go into the boneyard and dust off a hyena. For what? Thank you, Kise. Probably Kise. You cannot build a community without reproducing in the community. When it comes to Candace and Umar, they are hypocrites to me. One has baby mothers, the other a white man. Exactly. Thank you to Renzo. So this entire thing is an endless psychological catch-22, simply put, and it's also beyond mind control and their survival. Thank you, Miss Celine. Said, regardless of how much old money him and his family has, from what I see, he seemed like a mentally weak man with no backbone. I agree. Thank you, Chris. As unpopular as Candace is in the Black community, I respect that you give her credit, how she dresses, speaks, and carries herself, because it is what it is. I'm not gonna be like, oh, she ratchet because I don't like her. I'm gonna say what it is, and then we gonna pick it apart. We gonna tell the truth over here. Thank you, Arvin, for your contribution. Thank you again, Utah. Said, last question: can you have lionesses, human or animals, in your background at your apartment? What you mean? I don't understand that question. Thank you, Common Man. Said, however, now Candace will run to the covenants of Black America like they always do, and like fools who let her back in like we always do. This is why I was silent. I'm gonna say this. This is why I was kind of quiet when I said, oh, she gonna come back to Black media, because we gonna let her in. We're gonna let her in. We're gonna let her do her interviews, and not just about this because the story hot. But we gonna let her platform and speak and do all this kind of stuff with us, knowing what she was, what ideology she was rocking. Since we know her, that's why we know her. We know her for this ideology. Thank you, Jared. Said there's a TV show called Warrior where in San Francisco it was Chinese versus Italians all stacked into the same space, both committing crimes to survive. Thank you, Patrick. Said the Italian took over the unions and gatekeepers of contracts from the government. True. Thank you, JS. Ironically, the racist sounds just like Umar and Boyce. Thank you, Blue. Said, why is his face so huge? That big head stuff. Thank you, Timothy Humphrey, for your super sticker. Thank you, Red Sigma. Said, for the cooking oil. Thank you again to Renzo. Said, don't we live in reality where it said that everything is connected? Yes, therefore he gets no credit for any blank thing. The end. Thank you, JS. So less than 18% of Black men account for 80% of the out of wedlock children, yet the remaining 80% of Black men get scapegoated. No other group gets lied on as easily. Thank you, Common Man. Said 100% correct. However, I call it the welfare to prison pipeline, because 80% of Black men in prison were once on welfare. Numbers jumped big time after 1963. And thank you, brother, assalamu alaikum, to Abdul Alim, to let these folks talk long enough. They tell on themselves. Don't they, though? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Brandon said Black people don't have to let her back. The mainstream Black media is going to give her a platform and force feed her to us, and that's who she cares about. Thank you so much. And thank you, DG, for your contribution as well. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get on up out of here. We're gonna pick this back up because I want to talk about the coming back. Oh, now I see what y'all was saying. She's not gonna be really able to do that, but we'll talk about it next time. So what I want you guys to do is jump down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Once again, I'm your hostess, The Crimson Cure, and this was my perspective. Bye-bye, Crimsonite.